July 4th, 1783. The Stars and Stripes fall, and Britain wins the war. Forget independence, we're diving into a chilling alternate history where America stayed under British rule. Imagine a world where the United States never existed as a superpower, a world where Britain won the Revolutionary War. How would 21st century America fare under the Crown's strict resource control, militarized patrols, and governors enforcing iron-fisted economic policies? Would the colonial spirit that fought for democracy endure, sparking resistance against British dominance in 2025? Or would the tight grip on trade and agriculture stifle rebellion before it could take root? In 1783, the war's outcome hangs in the balance. The American Revolution has dragged on for 8 brutal years. Villages are burned, armies starve, and families are split apart. The idea of defeating Britain, the world's most powerful empire, looks impossible. But what if those few critical turning points had tipped the other way? What if the events that saved the revolution never happened? To see how this alternate timeline unfolds, let's break down why the colonists actually won. French support was huge: money, modern weapons, and, most importantly, the French Navy at Yorktown. Their fleet blocked the British from reinforcing Cornwallis, cutting off supplies and forcing a surrender. Without that blockade, Yorktown doesn't fall. The war drags on. Combined with hit-and-run militia tactics that wore out British troops and stretched supply lines, these factors turned the tide. British mistakes, underestimating the colonists, spreading their forces thin, and failing to adapt, added up. It was a mix of outside help, local tactics, and British overreach that gave the colonies a shot at independence. But things could have gone differently. What if France never joined in? Early on, King Louis XVI hesitated. The colonies pushed for support, but without solid proof they could hold out, France almost walked away. Without French money, weapons, or naval power, the colonial army would have been stuck with outdated gear and no funding. Yorktown would just be another failed siege. Now, think about British strategy. The Intolerable Acts weren't just harsh laws. They were meant to crush any hope of rebellion. If Britain enforced them with full force, shutting down Boston, stripping self-government, and quartering troops, resistance would be choked off from the start. There's also the numbers game. British forces in the war ranged from 30,000 to 50,000. Imagine if they'd ramped that up to 70,000 by 1776. That kind of early, overwhelming force could have buried the revolution before it caught fire. In this scenario, British armies take every major city by 1783. Loyalists, who never left, call for payback. Revolutionary leaders would face exile or imprisonment, effectively decapitating colonial leadership. Loyalist governors rewrite the laws to fit the Crown's needs. Boston turns into a garrison city packed with redcoats. The Stars and Stripes are banned. Only the Union Jack flies. Without independence, the idea of colonial democracy is dead. There's no constitution, no Bill of Rights. Jury trials disappear. Freedom of the press and speech are strangled. The people have no protected rights against the government. Local leaders are replaced by governors who answer only to London. We, the people, never happens. But dominance doesn't mean peace. A population that fought for freedom won't just forget. Even if rebellion fizzles in 1783, the spirit of 1776 simmers under the surface. Britain faces the challenge of ruling a heavily taxed, restless nation from across the Atlantic. It's not just about controlling land. It's about controlling the minds of 2.5 million people who almost tasted independence. With every city under garrison, London would reshape colonial life from the ground up. So how far would they go to lock down this new dominion? Daily life in a British-ruled America means top-down control. Right after the surrender, the Continental Congress is gone, and British-appointed governors take charge. No more local assemblies with real power. London calls the shots. The colonies get reorganized into a dominion model, like what happened in Canada later on. Instead of self-rule, the colonies become economic satellites, their main job to feed wealth and resources back to Britain. The Board of Trade steps in to regulate commerce, making sure profits go straight to London. Keeping that many people in line isn't easy. The Crown relies on military force. British troops are everywhere: Boston, New York, Philadelphia, stationed to keep order and stamp out any hint of rebellion. The Intolerable Acts, once a rallying cry, now become permanent policy. Public meetings and protests are banned, and soldiers have the right to search homes and businesses for contraband or signs of dissent. These measures don't just keep the peace, they create a climate of fear and resentment. People who once dreamed of self-government now live under constant surveillance and military presence. Economically, the system is rigged. Northern colonies turn into industrial hubs, but not for their own benefit. Factories and mills churn out textiles and finished goods, all destined for British markets. Any innovation is tightly controlled. Patents and new technologies are funneled to help cities like Manchester, not Philadelphia or Boston. In the South, plantations expand to meet Britain's hunger for cotton and tobacco. Slavery doesn't just persist, it grows. British colonial policy keeps slavery entrenched well into the 19th century, with the demand for cash crops driving a brutal expansion of forced labor. The wealth from these industries doesn't stay local. It moves up the chain to London, leaving colonial families with little to show for their work. The impact is everywhere. Farmers and merchants are stuck. Laws and taxes force them to sell raw goods to Britain at low prices and buy back finished products at a premium. Local infrastructure, roads, ports, canals, only gets funding if it helps British trade. The result is a cycle where the colonies stay dependent and underdeveloped, locked into a system that benefits the empire, not the people who live and work there. Culturally, the shift is just as deep. British values shape education, law, and religion. Schools teach loyalty to the crown and British history, erasing stories of colonial resistance. Traditional colonial celebrations would fade under imperial priorities, replaced by official holidays honoring the monarchy. The legal system follows British common law, leaving no room for local traditions to grow. Religion centers on the Anglican Church, pushing dissenters to the margins. With no constitution or Bill of Rights, basic freedoms like speech, jury trials, and privacy vanish overnight. The government can silence critics, search homes without cause, and punish anyone seen as a threat. There's no legal shield for the average person. Living under British rule means always watching your back, knowing that the law is written to protect imperial power, not individual rights. Still, control isn't everything. Even with troops in every city and strict laws on every corner, some colonists remember what it was like to hope for freedom. Underground networks survive, fueled by the stories and ideals of 1776. British rule can stamp out open rebellion, but it can't erase the memory of resistance. But even with martial law in every port, could underground cells keep the flame of rebellion alive? Let's fast forward to 2025. Picture rebellion in 2025. No muskets, no bayonets. The battlefield is digital, and the Crown's grip is tighter than ever. Drones sweep the skies, AI engines monitor emails and camera feeds, and strict cyber laws erase any trace of dissent before it spreads. With Britain's 2023 defense budget pushing $60 billion, their satellites and AI surveillance programs are fully funded and always watching. The system is designed to spot trouble before it even starts, but technology cuts both ways. With over 400 million civilian firearms nationwide, the raw firepower for resistance is massive, far beyond what the original Minutemen could dream of. Rebels don't just hide in the woods. They use encrypted messaging apps to coordinate, 3D printers to build weapons in secret, and rugged terrain to stage hit-and-run attacks. Appalachia and the Rockies become the new front lines, but this time, the fight is faster, louder, and more connected. It might start small, with scattered militias acting on their own, but British satellites can track movement in real time, mapping every back road and forest trail. AI-assisted drones target rebel camps with pinpoint accuracy. Thermal imaging and facial recognition erase the old advantage of knowing the land. But what if the rebels had a secret network only London couldn't see? We'll explore that next. Underground, the digital war heats up. Hackers launch attacks on British infrastructure, leaking documents and disrupting AI surveillance grids. Encrypted channels buzz with plans and warnings. 3D printed weapons circulate through hidden networks. The Crown counters with social credit systems, flagging anyone who questions authority and cutting off their access to work or travel. Grid sabotage becomes a high-stakes move. Take out the wrong network, and both rebels and loyalists pay the price. International politics add another layer. If the rebellion grows, global rivals like China or Russia might step in, funding resistance to weaken Britain's hold. Historical data shows that 60% of colonial wars drew foreign support. sometimes stretching conflicts for generations. In this world, foreign aid could mean money, weapons, or intelligence, anything to tip the scales. British naval dominance isn't just history, it's a fact in this timeline too. The Royal Navy controls the seas, making it hard for rebels to get supplies from abroad. Drone fleets and AI-powered patrols keep major cities under constant watch, and supply lines are always at risk. Rebels face a machine that learns and adapts with every move they make. Still, technology can't erase resentment. Centuries of British rule have changed everything: laws, language, even daily life. But the memory of freedom lingers. Rebels fight not just for rights, but for a way of life buried under layers of imperial control. The battle lines are drawn in code, in city streets, and in the minds of people who refuse to give up. Rebellion doesn't vanish, it transforms. Whether it's muskets on a battlefield or encrypted code infiltrating digital systems, the fight for freedom adapts to its time. Under centuries of British rule, America would endure cycles of suppression and resistance, its spirit bending but never breaking. History shows us the cost of colonial domination: economic exploitation, cultural suppression, and smoldering discontent. Foreign powers, like France in 1783, could again fan the flames of rebellion, extending conflict and escalation. So what's the tipping point? Could a fractured America under surveillance still reclaim freedom? Let us know what you think in the comments. What epic what-if world would you explore next? Share your ideas below. If you loved this video, smash that like button, subscribe for more mind-blowing alternate histories, and hit the bell. Our next adventure drops soon with another game-changing twist. Catch you in another world of the wildest what-ifs.